San Francisco 49ers getting ready for the Detroit Lions, and this week has been all about Brock Purdy, the Brock Purdy discourse, the war on Brock Purdy by some. We're going to take you through and navigate where the real answers lie on who Brock Purdy is, and it's really not any different than he was before last week, shockingly enough. And a couple 49ers assistants interviewing for other jobs. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. You know what time it is on this Wednesday. More on our guest here in a moment. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. And now let's bring on today's guest.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Action News 8 Sports with Nick Winkler.
Wow.
Wink, what's happening, my man? 49ers squeaked by the skin of their teeth against the Green Bay Packers, advancing to the NFC Championship game. And all the talk now, all the arguments now, no matter what channel you turn on that talks about sports, whatever podcast it is, they're talking about Brock Purdy. And to be honest, I'm hearing some asinine comments about Brock Purdy as if there's some great change that happened within the last week. And Brock Purdy should have been this guy in week 2 and this guy last year. And now he's this guy in the playoffs and he's this guy over here. Can you help us out, Wink? What's going on with Brock Purdy? What were your thoughts on that performance against the Green Bay Packers?
I mean, it's just weird, right? The guy's such an amazing underdog story, and yet the only people that really love him and really see what's happening and the magic that he has are 49er fans. Everyone else is just find some excuse or some reason to be like, he's not it. He's not it. He's not it. Even people like Jordan Love played a better game. No, he didn't. He threw 2 interceptions, right? A horrible one at the end of the game. Like Brock Purdy led a game-winning drive, like it really bothers me when people keep slandering Purdy.
Like I picture like what the PFF grade might have been in my head. And it started off with like Brock Purdy down here and Jordan Love up here. And then the game went on and it was kind of like, this and then this and then this. And it was right here. And then the last play of the game, Jordan Love interception, right below. The last drive for Purdy, he comes up a little bit. The last throw and that tipped it. And they had they had both bad, by the way, PFF grades in the end, 50 something, and it was like 59 point whatever to 56.8. And it was like that last throw from Jordan Love, it dropped him below Brock Purdy for the game. Guts to finish, but you can't gloss over, how they played, how the 49ers played for the whole game. But like they're built a certain way to overcome that, which I really love. But my thing with Brock Purdy too is like, and we talked about it, Croc, earlier this year on the podcast. He's the same guy. Like, I don't know why people keep flip-flopping. They want to make – he's the best quarterback that's ever existed. He's a trash quarterback. He's only good because of the weapons around him. He's been the same guy the whole time, which is really good. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's just really good. And we know what his limitations are. We know what his strengths are. And it was Brock Purdy with rain this week, right? It's like when you order a hamburger, you put cheese on it, it becomes a cheeseburger. Like Brock Purdy was a cheeseburger because you just added one thing to it. You know what I mean? Like it was Brock Purdy. There was just rain, and it made it a little bit more difficult, and it made some things difficult.
But usually, cheese makes things a little bit better.
Yeah, and I guess that's a bad because it's its own thing. It's called a cheeseburger, so maybe it's more like a pizza with pineapple. Maybe that's more like.
I like
That
pineapple
makes it
pizza.
better too. Yeah, you're
right.
blowing it
I mean,
again.
better for me. For some people who don't like pineapple, it's like with pineapple. But you know what I mean? It's just like it's the same guy. You added one more element to it, but he's still the same guy. I don't know why your opinion would change of Brock Purdy from what we saw in Week 4 versus what we saw in the divisional round of the playoffs. He is the same guy.
Well, two things here. One, I think actually bringing up the pineapple pizza was actually a great analogy or comparison, right? Because pineapple pizza is kind of, I don't know if it's an acquired taste, but people have strong opinions on it one way or another. Winky and I love pineapple pizza. I think it's amazing. There's a lot of people, pineapple pizza doesn't belong on a pizza. They think that there's something wrong with it. So maybe that is Brock. You know, he's pineapple pizza and some people love it. And for whatever reason, other people, they're like, oh, it's overrated. It's not that great. You know, I think a lot of this discourse for him as well, especially with the discussions and whatnot. People talk about the hate that he's getting. I think it's because of the team that he's on. You know, it would be an underdog story and probably great if he was on the Carolina Panthers and he's doing it and it's awesome. Like there's no expectations. But anytime you are a part of something that is great, and it's been great for a while, the 49ers not winning the Super Bowl, of course, but with just how good they've been, there's a certain level of just expectations for a good team. And even though he's kind of youthful in his experience, he's thrusted into that. You kind of become part of the villain. Think about the Golden State Warriors. Everybody loved Steph Curry when they weren't winning all the time, right? Oh, it's this fun guy, and how could you not love him? And he looks like, this kid, and he's running around, and he's doing all these, wow, he's so great, and he has a wife, and this is how it's supposed to be. Then all of a sudden, the Warriors start winning all the time, and then people want to start poking at what he isn't, when all he is this great player, right? And I'm not saying that Brock is, the same as Curry, but just in the sense of how once you start being good and you're on something that is great, people want to start kind of picking at the greatness of that team. And I think when you look at the 49ers, of course, everybody loves an underdog story, but the 49ers aren't underdogs. So everybody, they just kind of thrust Brock Purdy in with the rest of everything else that's going very well. And you got to find something to pick at. And it happened to be Brock Purdy.
So Brock Purdy is the Steph Curry of the NFL. I like that a lot. That's better than the one. Brock, some of our YouTube comments were a little bit angry at you because you said the J word, the Jimmy G. You used that reference. You said that I don't remember what the context was exactly. Something like Brock played like Jimmy G in that game, or it was a Jimmy G like game, or something like that.
Was it not?
And well, that's the thing is, people need to realize that you said Jimmy G like he played like Jimmy G. You didn't say Brock Purdy is Jimmy G, right? And so that's where like the people and like it's from everywhere. It's like you can't say one bad thing, you can't say one weird thing, you can't even admit that he played a little bad in the rain. I have some other thoughts on why he did play bad. Some things that were not his fault, and some things that defenses are doing against Brock Purdy. I think we're going to see a lot more against Brock Purdy. But playing like Jimmy G doesn't mean you are Jimmy G, right? When a 250 hitter gets hot and hits 2 home runs in a game, that doesn't mean he's Barry Bonds. But he might have hit one in the water that day. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Barry Bonds did. So just the whole Brock Purdy discourse is just like everyone's weird about it and angry about it. Yeah. He's the same guy. He is really good. He is not Patrick Mahomes. He's not in that tier of quarterback, but he's a really good quarterback. And people just have a really hard time living in the gray area of life, especially sports fans. And so I just wanted to make sure we came out and helped everybody through these troubled waters about Brock Purdy. And I bet he's going to go off this week. I think it's setting up for a much better game for him. Whatever your favorite pizza toppings are, it's going to be Brock with that in this game.
I don't think you helped. Because Ryan Clark, it's the way I think he said it, but essentially he kind of said the same thing as you. Where
no. What Ryan Clark said is he was lying about it the whole time.
Well, he was lying about how he felt like he was okay. I got to mention him with these guys, but I don't think he's with them. And just him saying, well, I don't think that he's Josh Allen or Mahomes or Lamar. I don't think that's like a hot take if you but to 49er fans, it is. Like those guys. And I heard my guy Middlecoff said, like, who is good? He's like, this and that, and he did good, whatever. He's like, well, he's not. Why don't mention him with these guys, but who is doing that? And I'm like, well, 49er fans are, because I see it on my timeline.
And that's part of the problem is, like, you can have an MVP season and Lamar can still be better, but Brock could win MVP because he had an MVP season. That doesn't mean he's better than every single quarterback in the league. I mean, he had an awesome year, right? And I think that's where people have problems with it. And that's why some of those national media shows, there's a lot of people saying stuff for engagement and saying things they maybe don't mean, that they don't really feel. And we had never put that on him, Croc. And that's what I'm saying. Is like, that's why you come to Locked On 49ers. We've been telling the truth about what Brock Purdy is, which is a really good quarterback. And he's putting up awesome numbers. And he absolutely was in the MVP conversation, not because he's a freak of nature, not because he's better than every quarterback in the league. It's because he was playing amazing. And that's why he was in the MVP conversation.
We get haters because if we don't see him as in the same tier as those guys. Like if we kind of talk about it objectively, like with, hey man, I think he's really good. He's been really good for the 49ers and he does all these things. But it's like, but we're not saying it in a way that he's equal to these guys. Our comments are flooded, which I even stopped having to read them. I stopped reading our comments. Like, so you're like, oh, they said this, but I didn't see, because I know how the 49er fans get if you don't say, if everything isn't like praising him, which is like, dang, like that's crazy how we've come to this point where you can't even give an unbiased opinion on, man, I think he's playing very well. He's doing really good. Oh man, was not good for a whole game, but man, he came through in the clutch and that was awesome. And that was really kind of a lot like what we saw from Jimmy, but I know 90% of the time he's better than Jimmy. It's just like, oh, but all I hear is Jimmy G. And I think for people that talk about this stuff in the media and how they get attacked, they might have a 2-minute run on saying good things and either start or finish with, well, he's not these guys. And like, that's what gets this. That's where people get upset. And they do that with us.
He's not those guys. He's not a first-round pick. He's not 6'5". He doesn't have the arm strength that these guys do. He doesn't have the speed. What he does do is win football games. And he won a very tough football game in tough conditions against a good defense. And what Brock Purdy has showed time and time again is resiliency, is his ability to bounce back. And that's what we're expecting from him this weekend, right? He comes out and he has a 4-touchdown, 300-yard game on Sunday against the Lions. Does the national media, does the narrative change? Or do they still like, oh, well, it's just because it was good conditions. What if it was raining? Like, they're going to find a way to knock Brock Purdy down because, as you said, they're haters. And they get a lot of clicks because people want to go and hate on a winner. And the 49ers, 3 straight NFC championship games, right? I mean, this is a team that continues to do it year in and year out. Brock Purdy's their leader, so he's the guy who's going to take the most heat. And the fact that he came back when he was playing a horrible football game, he was bad. He did look like Jimmy G in that game. When he threw it over the middle, you held your breath. It was back to those Jimmy G days because he was not accurate. No, I don't think he's got the hand size to play in a wet football game. We saw it firsthand. But what he did is let a comeback win and led the 49ers to another NFC championship game. It's impressive. Brock Purdy, he just keep proving the doubters wrong, man.
Who you taking? Josh Allen or Brock Purdy?
Hold on. Pause on that. Hold on.
No, just in general.
Pause on that.
I want them to come for him.
Think about that. Think about that for a second, because there's some numbers put out there this week as well comparing Josh Allen's game. Didn't win his playoff game against Brock Purdy. Did win his playoff game. And again, I think I know what teams are trying to do right now against Brock Purdy. Next. The Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and even sharks in the pool. All you do is you pick more or less than 2 to 6 players, stats, projections, and watch those winnings roll in. If you hit all 6, it's 25 times your money this football season at PrizePicks. Only a couple more games to go. Hopefully the 49ers are playing in that last one, and tons of NFL projections, NBA projections as well. Turn $10 into $250 at PrizePicks. And I have a feeling the more than for Brock Purdy is the play on PrizePicks this week. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks LockedOnNFL is the promo code. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. I come back to it. I always come back to it. And you can tell the ball watchers and the non-ball watchers when they start saying Brock Purdy's a check down artist. And that's one of the telltale signs. Another telltale sign is the flip-floppers, right? So Brock Purdy, you mentioned it. Wink, Brock Purdy comes out, throws 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, has this amazing game. There's going to be guys that flip-flop. And Brock Purdy is Brock Purdy. He is what he is. We know what he is. We've seen it. I'm really confident knowing what he is. He's got the guts of a burglar. He's really smart. He's a really good NFL quarterback. He doesn't have 10.5-inch hands. He's not 6'5". He can't throw the moon ball that Josh Allen threw. But guess what? That moon ball was incomplete. But Josh Allen, what did he do? He completed 16 of 16 passes behind the line of scrimmage in that game. Didn't have one over 20 yards. Brock Purdy had 4 behind the line of scrimmage, right? And you don't need to use Josh Allen to prove your point about Brock Purdy. All you got to do is watch Brock Purdy. But there's just so many wild things that happen as it pertains to Brock Purdy and who he is and what he is as a quarterback. But I believe, Croc, you posed a question. So we'll go there, and then I've got one more point on Brock Purdy.
Yeah, well,
I want a
question
winner,
was,
right?
I just asked Nick. I said, if you're starting your team today, and you get to pick between Josh Allen and Brock Purdy, like who are you taking?
See, that's a tough call, right? Because you go with, on paper, the guy who's big, tall, strong, fast, right? Or
I'm just asking the question. See, he's doing all the. I just asked the question,
trying to stir it up. He's yelling from the mountaintops, asking for Lions fans to come yell at him. Now he's asking for 49ers fans to come at Wink. He's just trying to stir stuff up over here because depending on where your angle is and how you hear this answer that Wink's about to give, you're either mad at Wink or you're mad at Croc. So I'm gonna stay out of this.
Give me the guy who wins football games and doesn't turn the football over. Give me Brock Purdy. I think there's one guy in the NFL I'm taking over Brock Purdy, and it's the guy who's been to 6 straight championship games in the AFC. And I think that's about it. I mean, Brock Purdy goes out and he wins. Yeah, it's not always pretty, but what we've had for the last couple of decades have been not pretty quarterbacks, right? Kaepernick did it. It wasn't pretty. It was great. The outcome was solid, but what we're looking at right now with Brock Purdy is a guy who understands what's needed from him, and he goes out and he wins and he bounces back. That pass to Juwan Jennings over the middle on 3rd and 10, and he's getting hit and he's throwing it over the linebacker. Like, that was amazing. Guy hit Chris Conley on a little out route on a 3rd down. Like, he steps up when he needs to step up. Brock Purdy, time and time again, does it right.
And you want to talk weapons? You just said 2 names: Juwan Jennings, Chris Conley. That's not what people point to when they talk about how great Brock Purdy is or why he's not great, because he's throwing to Juwan Jennings, Chris Conley. They're not using those names when they're just talking about why Brock Purdy isn't good because of all these weapons he has.
So why would Nick take Patrick Mahomes over Brock Purdy? Like, Brock led the league in like every statistical category. He was more efficient than Mahomes. He threw more touchdowns, less interceptions.
Why would you wins 6 straight AFC championships? Like I said, I like winners. So the big winner to me is Brock Purdy over Josh Allen for sure. But then, Patrick Mahomes is like the one guy I would take.
The tough thing with that is, and you talk about winners and not Josh Allen and stuff like that, Josh Allen just keeps losing to the winner, which is Patrick Mahomes.
And the Niners lost to the winner as well, but that was Jimmy G. That wasn't Brock Purdy.
Yeah, Josh Allen's like, can you guys trade me to the NFC, please?
please.
What about you? Hey, Croc, you asked the question.
Yeah. Who are you taking?
I asked the question. I didn't have to give an answer.
Wow. Running from
you sound like me right there.
Unbelievable.
Croc, I like both guys.
Wow.
Croc knows what he's going to answer, and he doesn't want people.
Guys, real quick. I know we're going to move on to the Lions at some point, but before we do, guys, I got to talk about my reaction to that football game. So first of all, I'm pacing my house, right? Most of the game. I'm screaming. I'm yelling. I'm starting to lose my voice. And then when that interception happens with Jordan Love, I scream so loud out of excitement. And then I scream so much louder at Dre Greenlaw to get down. I mean, the guy had one of the best games the middle linebackers ever had for the 49ers. 2 picks, the big stop of Jordan Love on fourth down. Like, and then he's about to go, and it looks like he's going to pitch the ball. Like, I'm screaming, and my kids and my wife are like, what are you doing? They just went. I'm like, not yet. They haven't. Like, what he needs to get down.
Yeah.
Oh God. I that to me was like the most frustrated and like scared I've been as a 49er fan, maybe in my entire life. Because they played a tough football game and they finally had a chance to win it. And Dre Greenlaw's running around like a damn fool. Like, oh man.
Fred Warner talked about it at the podium after the game. He went swim move with the ball in his hand over the defender's head. Trey, what are you doing, man?
I'm yelling, protect the ball. What are you doing? Get down. Oh my God.
Did you guys hear Christian McCaffrey talk about it?
No.
He said, he ran the ball well. He was just like, I think he can improve the ball security.
Yeah. Chris McCaffrey's got it tucked up there. 5 points of pressure, right? That's what Tom Rathman used to teach about when he was running back.
So good.
49ers. Did you yell louder, get down, or did you yell louder, run the bleeping ball earlier in the game when Chris McCaffrey had only 11 carries through 3 quarters, whatever it was?
I mean, he had like 2 touches on the first 2 drives. Like, it was crazy. Like, in the backfield, it's like, that's a wet football. Run the football. Why are you passing over and over? And especially right after Debo went down too, you're like, okay, this is going to be we're going to, make it a real quick game. We're going to run the ball over and over and over, keep giving it to your best player, Christian McCaffrey. And they just weren't doing it, man. It was, it was very frustrating.
I think I differ with that. I just have so much trust in Brock Purdy that when Kyle put the ball in his hands, it's like, hey, throw the ball and complete and do these things. I never wavered with that. I thought that was a good,
But then he started missing his passes, right?
No, but it's cool. But he's going to get out of that. Like, why would I tell him? Like, he's the guy. Why would I say
pineapple?
Take the ball out of his hands. Like, okay, missed a couple. Okay, he's going to start hitting some.
Yeah. No, there's the pineapple. You got to factor in the pineapple.
You talk about Brock Purdy leading the league in almost all those categories. Christian McCaffrey led the league in almost every running back category, right? So you got that guy too. Let's not forget about him in a wet game when your best wide receiver's gone down. Like it was a tough game to watch. Like I said, a lot of pacing.
How come everybody talks about how it's a Kyle Shanahan offense and helps Brock Purdy so much, but nobody talks about how awesome the 49ers always run the ball and how great the Shanahans have been for 30 years running the ball, but that doesn't help Christian McCaffrey at all.
Good call. That's a great.
Nobody
question.
talks about that. Isn't that weird?
Well, I think we brought it up one time because who was? Oh, I think it was Cam Newton, and he talked about how great of a system it is for Christian McCaffrey. The issue is the messenger. So Cam is the one like, oh man, like I think it's perfect for him. That's why he's excelling. They understand how to utilize him and stuff. But 49er fans, because he said that Brock Purdy's a game manager, they don't want to hear the opinion of Cam now. But Cam Newton was the one that's the one person I've heard kind of equate some of the success that McCaffrey has had to the scheme and system that he's in with Shanahan.
McCaffrey had better numbers in 2019 with the Panthers than he had this
Carolina.
year. 1,000 season that year. Yeah. So
question, guys. I don't know if anybody's talking about this, or maybe you guys have talked about this, but I was thinking the other day, okay, so what if Debo doesn't play this weekend, right? Like, what do the 49ers do? Do you, in my opinion, do something like Christian McCaffrey plays a lot more of that Debo role, and maybe you get Elijah Mitchell in the backfield. That way you don't have Ray McLeod and Chris Conley and these guys out there on the field. You actually bring somebody like Elijah Mitchell, who is fantastic runner, maybe not the best catcher out of the backfield, but then you kind of moving Christian McCaffrey around a lot more.
I'm going to answer that next because I do have thoughts on that, and it's a really good question. And I have 2 answers because I think I know what I would do, and it's not what Kyle Shanahan is going to do. So we'll get into that one next. eBay Motors, passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your car on the road. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, tons more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back is super easy. I went to eBay Motors. There was a green check. It was the right fit. I had no hassle. It was super easy. I've tried to buy car parts online before, and it's always really difficult. So I love the guaranteed fit at eBay Motors. Just look for that green check. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. That is eBay Motors. Okay. So, real quick, I just want to get this out because it's something I've noticed about Brock Purdy, and we can get back into it, and we might have to push some other subjects into the future. And it might be because I'm looking for it, but I want you guys to watch this against the Lions, and maybe if you go back and watch more of the Packers game. And I started to notice it, and they talked about it. The Ravens players talked about it after the game. The pass rushers and the pass rush from teams against Brock Purdy, they're doing everything they can to get their hands on the ball at the line of scrimmage. And now I'm looking for it. And now I don't know if I'm going crazy because I'm seeing pass rushers try to get their hands in the passing lanes more. Is it because I'm looking for it? Or is it because this is a teaching point and it's something teams are trying to do more against Brock Purdy, knowing how quick he is to get rid of the ball, knowing that he's not 6'5" and where the ball comes out. And there was a few throws in this game where he had hands in his face, and it looked like maybe it was the ball squirting out, maybe it was a combination of things, but he's trying to get the ball, his throwing lanes, instead of here where he wants to go, he's got to go here. And then he's missing his throw just a little bit because he's got to hit a window, and he's not trying to throw the defense, right? We saw so many balls hit the ground. They weren't bad throws that hit defenders. A couple of them were that were luckily dropped. But I might be going crazy, but I think the coaching point against Brock Purdy, hands up, and look, defensive linemen try to get their hands up anyway, but I feel like it's more, and maybe I'm going crazy and I'm just looking for it now since the Ravens game. I really think that's one of the things that teams are trying to do against Brock Purdy is really affect the passing lanes and get their hands up. And I did affect some throws in this game that I thought were water balls, and they were maybe just throwing lane problems for Brock Purdy. And then a couple of the other throws, he was hit, and it wasn't just the rain. So I think when you go back and you look with context from Brock Purdy's game, there was other reasons why, not just him playing bad, that were reasons why things were weird for 3.5 quarters of that football game.
Well, you also had another take about that, and it had to kind of do with the draft, where he was drafted. So can you talk about kind of that in comparison to maybe some of the things that you felt like you saw?
Well, when it comes to, and the Josh Allen comparison is perfect. Why are people looking for Josh Allen in the draft? Like, Josh Allen could barely hit the broadside of a barn in college, right? But they're like 6'5", huge arm. That's what I want. I want this physical ability because it helps so many things on Sundays. And when you're someone like Brock Purdy and you have a base level, like, you're fine. You're good athlete. You've got a fine arm. You're a good fit for Kyle Shanahan's aggressively intermediate offense. You can throw darts on all these levels, layered throws, talking about the catch by Juwan Jennings and that throw over the middle of the field. It takes guts to make that throw. It takes guts to see it. Some quarterbacks just won't even uncork it. And Brock Purdy's able to make plays like that. It's not an arm strength throw. It's a neck up throw, right? And Brock Purdy has the ability to make those throws. It's what makes him so good in this offense. But when you're trying to get a quarterback that is the best possible quarterback, you want a guy that can throw the ball through a hailstorm. You know what I mean? And Brock Purdy, if you're at base level arm strength and now you sprinkle in the pineapple, right? It's raining, it's wet. That might bring you sub where you need to be level as far as your physicality, your size, your hand size, your stature, being able to see over, in certain passing lanes. And he's got really good footwork. He's good at finding those passing lanes, and he's such a smart quarterback, and it doesn't make him a bad quarterback, but there's a reason you draft. It's a reason he was a 7th round pick and other quarterbacks are 1st round picks. Again, don't get it twisted. It's not because it doesn't make Brock Purdy bad. It just makes him different. And he's done a good job of learning how to win with what he has, because other guys are much worse with a lot more physically too that are drafted in the 1st round. That's why there's so many misses in the 1st round, because they're not chasing this as much as they're chasing this. Right. And Brock Purdy has this. What you really want is to have the entire package. And there's times like in the rain where you see why, oh man, that's why teams want and are chasing that 1st round physical ability, that arm that can throw in bad weather and maybe throw through rain, throw through wind a little bit easier than other guys, maybe easier to see what's going on down the field. You can see it a little bit later because you can fit it into different places that other quarterbacks can't. Again, doesn't make Brock Purdy bad, but that's why he was a 7th round pick. It's not like people are like, oh, shoot, I can. If there's another Brock Purdy, that guy's also going to be a 7th round pick. You know, it's not like next year someone's going to be like, oh, Brock Purdy's are going in the 1st round now. No, Brock Purdy's are always going to be the gems that outplay their draft position.
Or, I mean, you can look at Tua, right? And we watched Tua and Mahomes play in the same inclement weather. And because of like a certain lack of physical capabilities, right? Tua, he's been awesome all year. Like he's been efficient. He does these things. He's hitting, all these explosive plays. You got Tyreek Hill. He's damn near a 2,000-yard receiver. They're throwing the ball down the field. But the moment something kind of changed a little bit with the weather, it's like now he became like a shell of himself. And like you said, that baseline of physical capabilities that people kind of want to say, oh, this stuff is overrated. It's not in these moments. And I don't think that situation is going anywhere for Miami. Like that's something Miami is always going to have to deal with where, hey man, you play in that AFC conference and you have all these cold weather teams that are really good. Baltimore, there was snow right outside of the Baltimore stadium. They just cleared the field. Maybe Pittsburgh you have to play in. We saw Kansas City, what that looked like. Buffalo. You're going to have to keep playing Cincinnati. You're going to keep playing these teams, and will he ever be good enough to be able to overcome maybe having to play in those circumstances, or does he always have to play at home? And when you look at Brock Purdy, where he does everything great, hopefully it just doesn't rain in the Bay. It's not like we get a lot of rain here, and some of these other NFC teams, maybe you don't have to play in that inclement weather. But if you do, that's something that you have to keep in mind that, hey, okay, we'll have to figure out a different way to win as opposed to our quarterback having to, consistently make throws in that weather. So I just thought that was a good point that you made. But as far as the hands getting up and the windows and things like that, I think that's something that is a good point. And a lot of, myself, 49er fans have to kind of look and see if that's something that continues to potentially be an issue for them.
I mean, the 49er Kyle Shanahan offense is quick strikes, right? It is those slants. It's the, quick passes out to your wide receiver on wide receiver screens. It's a lot of that. So that's just smart defense to do that sort of thing. So if they are doing that a lot more, maybe that's the blueprint. And maybe Kyle's got to adjust, right?
Let's see the adjustments, get him out on the move a little bit more, change up your looks, your hot reads. Cause that was one of the things the Ravens did is like, okay, well, we blitz him. Then we know he's going to go hot because he's really good at going hot, but now we're going to get our hands up because we know he's going to go hot. We can sort of anticipate that tip ball interception. Right. So you're always adjusting to the adjustments. I mean, these guys are so good at scheming things up and noticing little things. It's phenomenal. And I have all the faith in the world that Kyle and Brock are the types that can overcome any of those issues, right? And they did even in a rain game, and ended up winning that football game. So phenomenal. And a lot of people are going to hear this a lot of ways, the way we talk about Brock Purdy, but it's really never changed on what we thought Brock Purdy was. He is the same guy, and he's really good, right? He's a really good quarterback, and he's perfect for Kyle Shanahan. And look, Deebo Samuel's not Randy Moss either. Kyle Shanahan wants a thing for his offense, right? And he finds guys that fit what he's trying to do, and it makes it all work together so well. So anyway, to answer your question from earlier, Wink, yes, Kyle Shanahan should do that. Utilize McCaffrey in more of a Deebo role. He will not do that, and we will not see Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason ever again. That's
ever again.
By the way, real quick, Klint Kubiak and Brian Griese have interviewed for the Saints offensive coordinator job. So not out of the woods yet and potentially losing some coordinators. Steve Wilks interviewed with the Chargers for their head coach job. And Adam Peters is still hanging out over there in Washington, hasn't found a head coach yet. Once he does, might be making some calls about the potential offensive coordinator for that head coach as well. And I have a feeling a couple of those names like Kubiak and Griese could be on that list as well. So,
do you think Kubiak would be, do you think that Griese would be a better head coach than coordinator?
Maybe.
Possibly.
I don't know his X's and O's, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to when you're a coordinator, right? He does seem like a good leader when you see him on the sideline talking to those quarterbacks. He seems like a good guy that people want to follow.
Yeah, I can see him as somebody who bypasses the OC, the play caller thing altogether. Or I mean, like Mike McDaniel had to leave to become he got a head coach job before he got a coordinator job. He named himself the offensive coordinator, right? Because he couldn't call plays under Kyle. And so that's why these opportunities exist, because they, nobody's going to really be calling plays under Kyle Shanahan as much as they might be involved with the game plan. They're not the one calling the plays on Sunday. So fascinating. I thought we'd hear more about Griese's name. We've heard Kubiak with the Bears job. They hired Shane Waldron from the Seahawks as their offensive coordinator. So Kubiak's off that list. But there's a couple teams now that have interviewed Kubiak, and I think it's the first team that's interviewed Brian Griese. I'm not positive on that one, but anyway, not out of the woods yet. 49ers could potentially lose more. Wink.
Wish watch. It's the playoffs, but Wishnowsky continues to do it. 4 punts, 2 inside the 20, a big 57-yarder to flip the field. What more can you say about Wishnowsky?
One of those that were inside the 20, he actually punted it inside the 10. The returner caught it and made a couple guys miss to get.
He got
right
to like
around
the 19 or something. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thursday crossover, Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're getting ready for this NFC Championship game. Talk to you then right here, Locked On 49ers.
See ya.